The rain bit into my skin that October morning, sharp and unforgiving, soaking through my frayed jacket as I trudged down the cracked sidewalks of our fading mill town. It was a Tuesday, heavy with the weight of fallen leaves and a sky that seemed to hold its breath. My mind was tangled in the fight with my sister, her words like knives, mine like poison, the kind of fight that makes you wonder if blood ties can ever mend. My fingers grazed the locket around my neck. Mama's last gift before cancer stole her, its weight a reminder of promises I couldn't keep. I didn't know then that this morning would tear my world apart, handing me a story I wasn't ready to carry. Behind the old bookstore, where the alley reeked of damp paper and decay, a rustle stopped me, a faint sound like the world whispering a secret. There, half hidden by a tattered quilt, was a wicker basket, tucked against the wall as if someone prayed it would disappear. My heart stuttered as I knelt, peeling back the quilt. A baby, no more than a few days old, lay inside, her cheeks flushed against the cold, a tiny star-shaped birthmark glowing on her wrist. She was so still I feared the worst, until a soft coo broke the silence. Beside her, a note, its ink bleeding in the rain. "Please forgive me." Below, in a trembling scrawl, one word, Amelia. And there, at the edge, a faint sketch of a crescent moon, a symbol I swore I'd seen before, years ago, in a memory I'd tried to bury. Who abandons a child with nothing but a name and a plea? My pulse raced as I lifted her, her warmth seeping into my chest, waking an ache I thought I'd locked away. The nursery I never filled, the child I lost before she could be mine. Was this a gift from fate, a trap, or a truth I wasn't ready to face? In the distance, footsteps echoed, sharp and fleeting, then gone, as if someone had been watching, waiting. My breath caught, the locket burning against my skin. Amelia was mine to protect now, but what do you do when a stranger's story drags you back to a past you thought you'd escaped? The rain clawed at my face that October morning, sharp as betrayal, slicing through my frayed jacket as I trudged the cracked sidewalks of our fading mill town. It was a Tuesday, the air thick with sodden leaves, and a sky choking on its own grief, gray and heavy, like it knew what was coming. My mind was a snarl of yesterday's fight with Sarah, her words like shards of glass, mine like venom, each one tearing at the fragile thread of family we had left. I'd screamed things I couldn't take back, and her silence had been worse. My fingers grazed the locket around my neck, Mama's last gift before cancer hollowed her out, its weight a reminder of promises I'd broken, to stay close, to hold us together. I didn't know then that this morning would crack me open, thrusting a stranger's story into my shaking hands, a story I wasn't ready to carry. In my cramped apartment, the walls pressed close, the air sour with damp and regret. I cradled Amelia, her tiny breath steady against my racing heart, her warmth a lifeline I didn't deserve. The note from the alley lay on my scarred kitchen table. "Please forgive me." Amelia, its ink bleeding like tears, the crescent moon sketch beside her name tugging at a memory I couldn't pin down. A necklace? A tattoo? Something glimpsed years ago, in a moment I'd buried deep. I rocked her gently, her star-shaped birthmark peeking from her sleeve, and felt the weight of her name settle into me. A stranger's plea, now my burden. My hands shook as I dialed the police, my voice catching, each word a betrayal. What if they took her? What if I was handing her over to a system that would lose her in its cold machinery? They arrived too fast, their boots loud on my creaking floor, their questions sharper than the rain. Where was I at 6 a.m.? Why that alley? What did I know? Their eyes probed my face like I'd woven the wicker basket myself, like I'd written that note. I clutched the locket, its edges biting my palm, and said nothing about the footsteps I'd heard, faint but deliberate, fading into the storm. At the hospital, the sterile light burned my eyes. I followed as they wheeled Amelia away for a checkup, my heart screaming I was letting her down. A nurse's gaze lingered on her birthmark, her lips parting to whisper, "Rare marker," before she caught herself, turning away too quickly. My fingers tightened on the locket, its metal warm from my skin, as if Mama was trying to tell me something. What did that mark mean? Why did it feel like a secret I wasn't supposed to know? Back home, sleep was a stranger. The alley's footsteps echoed in my skull, louder now, a warning I couldn't decipher. I knelt by my bed, rummaging through Mama's old box, her faded obituary staring up at me, its date a knife in my chest, 5 years gone and still no answers. No crescent moon, just the ache of her absence, raw as ever. I rocked Amelia in the dark, her warmth seeping into me, her name a weight I wasn't ready for. But as her breath steadied, I felt it, a pull, deep and unyielding, like she was already mine, like she'd always been. The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed like a swarm of wasps, grating against my raw nerves as the detective's call dragged me from the fragile cocoon of my apartment. His voice was cold, clipped, demanding I come in, like I was already guilty of something. Why was I in that alley so early? What was I hiding? I didn't tell him I take that route every day to skirt the church where Mama's casket lay, where Sarah's tears had burned into me like acid. The memory of that day clung like damp rot, and I pushed it down, my fingers grazing the locket, its weight a tether to a grief I couldn't outrun. I didn't know then that every step toward answers would pull me deeper into a shadow I couldn't escape. At the station, the air smelled of stale coffee and suspicion. The detective slid the note across the table, sealed in plastic like evidence of my own failure. "Please forgive me, Amelia." The crescent moon sketch stared up, its curves sharp, tugging at something buried in my chest, a memory of a summer night, a whispered name, a face I couldn't place. I shook my head, but my voice betrayed me, thin and unsteady. Did I know the handwriting? No, but it felt like a lie. Like the moon knew me better than I knew myself. The detective's eyes narrowed, and I clutched the locket, its edges biting my palm. They said no one had claimed Amelia, that foster care was next, unless someone stepped up. My stomach twisted, picturing her star-shaped birthmark lost in a sea of strangers, her tiny hands reaching for no one. I couldn't let that happen. At the hospital, I sat by her crib, her fingers curling around mine, and I whispered her name, Amelia, like a prayer, like a vow I hadn't meant to make. Her warmth seeped into me, steadying my shaking hands, but the weight of her name pressed harder, a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. Walking home, I passed the bookstore, its windows dark, the alley beyond a gaping mouth. A shadow flickered, too tall, too still, gone when I blinked. My pulse spiked, the locket burning against my skin. Was it real, or was my fear playing tricks? I hurried on, the rain's rhythm matching my racing heart, each step heavy with the echo of those footsteps from yesterday, deliberate and close. I locked my door, checking it twice, but the silence felt like a lie. That night, I pulled Mama's box from under the bed, its contents a map of loss, letters, photos, her obituary. Then I found it, her journal, pages brittle, a crescent moon sketched in her looping scrawl, dated my 16th birthday. Next to it, a single word, Clara. My breath caught, sharp as a blade. Clara, our cousin, gone since high school, a name we never spoke. Why had Mama drawn that moon? What had she known? I rocked Amelia, her coos soft in the dark, but the locket felt heavier, like it carried a secret I wasn't ready to face. The air in my apartment shifted, thick with the sense of eyes watching, waiting, just beyond the walls. Who was out there, and what did they want with her? With me? Mama's journal was a ghost in my hands, its brittle pages whispering secrets that made my skin crawl. The crescent moon, scrawled beside the name Clara, hit me like a fist to the chest. Clara, our cousin, a shadow from high school who vanished without a trace, her name erased from our family's story like a stain scrubbed clean. I sat in my dim apartment, Amelia asleep in her crib, her star-shaped birthmark, a faint glow in the lamplight. The rain outside pounded the windows, a relentless drumbeat, matching the thud of my heart. I didn't know then that Clara's ghost would drag me into a past I'd spent years running from, a past that felt alive, watching me. I called Sarah, my voice trembling, hoping to stitch together the rift between us. "Clara," I said, and her silence was a blade, sharp and cold. "Don't drag up the past," she snapped, her voice raw with something, guilt, fear. She hung up before I could ask, leaving me staring at the phone, the locket heavy around my neck. Why did Clara's name make her flinch? What had we buried all those years ago? I pressed my fingers to the locket, Mama's absence a weight I couldn't shake, her secrets woven into its metal. At the hospital, I signed temporary custody papers for Amelia, my hands shaking as the pen scratched my name. Her warmth against me was the only thing keeping me from unraveling, her coos a fragile anchor. I wasn't ready to be her mother, but letting her go felt like losing Mama all over again. A social worker handed me a diaper bag from the basket, and inside, a silver crescent moon charm glinted, identical to Mama's sketch. My stomach lurched, the air in the room too thick, like it was holding its breath. Was this a coincidence, or something darker? I drove to the library, the rain blurring the windshield, my mind racing. Old newspapers yielded a single article from 1998. Clara, 16, missing, no leads. Her photo stared back, eyes like Mama's, wide and haunted, a crescent moon necklace at her throat. My knees buckled, the locket burning against my skin. Was she tied to Amelia? To me? I clutched the article, its edges crumpling, as if holding it could force answers from the past. The library's silence pressed in, heavy with ghosts I couldn't name. Midnight brought a creak outside my window, sharp and deliberate. I froze, Amelia's breaths soft in the dark, and peered through the blinds. A silhouette stood against the streetlight, motionless, its shadow stretching across my floor like a warning. My heart pounded, the locket a cold weight, as the figure vanished into the rain. Was it real, or was my fear carving shapes from the dark? I held Amelia closer, her warmth a shield against the creeping dread. What do you do when the past you've buried calls your name, daring you to uncover a truth that might break you? The crescent moon charm glinted in my hand, a piece of a puzzle I wasn't sure I wanted to solve, but one I couldn't ignore. Someone was out there, and they knew I had her. The locket hadn't left my neck in years, its weight a familiar ache, but I'd never dared open it, too afraid of the grief it held. Now, with Amelia asleep in a borrowed crib, her star-shaped birthmark glowing faintly in the lamplight, I pried it open, my fingers trembling like leaves in the October storm outside. Inside was a photo of Mama and me, her smile soft, mine forced, and behind it, a folded scrap of paper, yellowed and thin. A crescent moon sketch, Mama's handwriting, protect her. My breath caught, sharp as a blade, the words a warning I didn't understand. The rain battered my apartment's windows, a relentless rhythm, and I felt the past clawing its way back, dragging me towards something I wasn't ready to face. I called the hospital, my voice unsteady, demanding answers about Amelia's birthmark. The nurse hesitated, her words clipped, rare genetic marker, potentially traceable, but she wouldn't say more. Her silence was a wall, and I slammed the phone down, the locket burning against my skin. What was she hiding? Why did that mark feel like a secret tied to me? I paced, Amelia's soft breaths, the only thing keeping me from spiraling. Her warmth a reminder of the vow I'd made without words. The crescent moon in Mama's note stared from my memory, its curves echoing the one from the alley. At the bookstore, I cornered Mr. Hargrove, his eyes darting like a trapped animal when I asked about the alley. He mumbled about a woman lingering there days before I found Amelia, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Scared," he said, then turned away, polishing a counter that didn't need it. My pulse quickened. Was she Clara? Someone else? The rain-soaked alley outside seemed to pulse with secrets, its shadows deeper now, watching. I clutched the locket, its metal warm, as if Mama was urging me to keep going or warning me to stop. I tracked Clara's old address from library archives, a boarded-up house on the town's edge, its windows dark, a crescent moon spray-painted on the door like a taunt. The air there was thick, heavy with decay, and I stood frozen, the locket a weight pulling me back to Mama's words. Protect her. Sarah's text came late, a single line. Stop digging or it'll destroy you. My hands shook as I typed a reply, but her silence was louder, a wall between us I couldn't breach. What did she know? Why was she so afraid? That night, Amelia's cries shattered the quiet, and I stumbled to her crib, my heart stopping. A note lay beside her, its ink fresh, the words a gut punch, "She's not yours." Below, a crescent moon, its lines sharp as a threat. My scream echoed in the dark, waking Amelia, her wails merging with mine. The locket burned against my chest, Mama's warning alive now, tying me to a truth I couldn't escape. Was she guiding me, or had I opened a door to something darker? The rain outside seemed to whisper back, its rhythm a pulse of dread. Someone had been here, in my home, and they wanted Amelia. I held her close, her warmth my only anchor, but the shadows felt closer now, their edges sharp with intent. The note, "She's not yours," seared into my mind, its crescent moon a brand that wouldn't fade. I sat in the dark, Amelia's crib beside me, her soft coos the only thing keeping me from unraveling. The rain pounded my apartment's windows, a relentless drumbeat, but it couldn't drown out the fear clawing my chest. I'd called the police, my voice shaking, but they dismissed it as a prank, their tones thick with doubt, like I was a hysteric spinning tales. I wasn't. The locket burned against my skin, Mama's words, "Protect her," a pulse in my veins. I didn't know then that the night's whispers would pull me deeper into a truth I wasn't ready to face. At the pediatrician's, Amelia's star-shaped birthmark drew a frown, the doctor muttering about a rare genetic marker, potentially traceable to lineage. "Whose?" I demanded, my voice cracking, but he shook his head, his eyes sliding away. My hands trembled, clutching the locket, its weight heavier with every secret it held. Was Amelia tied to Clara, to Mama, to me? I drove home, the rain blurring the world, my mind racing with questions that had no answers, only shadows that grew longer with each step I took toward the truth. I returned to Clara's abandoned house, its crescent moon graffiti glaring in the storm's dim light. A hidden cellar door caught my eye, rusted but ajar. Inside, a box of letters, damp and crumbling, one in Mama's handwriting. A promise to protect someone, a crescent moon scrawled in the margin. My breath hitched. Clara? Amelia? The words blurred, my heart pounding as the locket seemed to pulse in time. What had Mama known? Why had she hidden this? The cellar's damp air clung to me, thick with secrets, like the house itself was watching. Sarah stormed into my apartment that evening, her face pale, her eyes wild. "Stop," she begged, her voice breaking when I mentioned Clara. "You're tearing us apart." She wouldn't look at me, her hands twisting, guilt radiating from her like heat. I pressed, but she fled, leaving me with the locket's weight and a growing dread. What was she hiding? Why did Clara's name break her? I sat by Amelia, her coos a fragile shield against the fear creeping closer, the crescent moon a constant in my mind. At the library, a 1998 photo of Clara stopped my heart, her face so like Mama's, a crescent moon necklace glinting at her throat. My knees buckled, the locket burning against my chest. Was she family? Was Amelia hers? The air felt too thin, the library's silence a weight pressing me down. That night, a phone call shattered the quiet, a woman's voice hissing, "She's not yours to keep," before the line went dead. My heart pounded, Amelia's cries rising, the locket afire against my skin. How far would you go to protect someone you love, even if it means tearing open wounds you thought had healed? The rain outside whispered back, its rhythm a warning, and I held Amelia tighter, knowing the shadows were closing in, their whispers no longer just in my head. The voice on the phone lingered, low and deliberate, like it had crawled into my bones. I sat in my apartment's dim light, Amelia clutched close, her warmth the only thing keeping my panic from swallowing me whole. The rain hammered the windows, a relentless pulse, but it couldn't drown out the dread coiling tighter in my chest. Every step toward answers felt like a trap snapping shut, the crescent moon a noose around my neck. The locket burned against my skin, Mama's words, "Protect her," a command I couldn't ignore, though I didn't know who I was protecting her from or why. I didn't know then that the truth was closer than I feared, waiting in the shadows. I confronted Sarah at her house, the air thick with tension, her kitchen smelling of burnt coffee and regret. I shoved Clara's photo at her, demanding answers. She froze, her eyes wide, then broke, admitting Clara was our cousin, hidden by Mama after something unspeakable. Her voice cracked, guilt seeping from her like blood from a wound. "You don't know what you're digging up," she whispered, but she wouldn't say more, her hands trembling as she turned away. I clutched the locket, its weight heavier with her confession. What had Clara done? What had Mama hidden? In Mama's box, I found an unopened letter, dated a month before her death, addressed to me in her looping scrawl. "If you find her, keep her safe. The crescent moon will guide you." My hands shook, the paper crumpling under my grip. Her words felt alive, urgent, tying Amelia to Clara, to me. I paced, Amelia's coos soft in the dark, the locket a pulse against my chest. Was this Mama's plan? Had she known I'd find her? The rain outside seemed to answer, its rhythm a warning I couldn't ignore. At the hospital, a records clerk slipped me Amelia's birth certificate, her eyes darting nervously. No mother listed, the father's name scratched out, a crescent moon scrawled over it like a curse. My breath caught, the locket burning hotter. Who was he? Why this symbol again and again? I drove to a diner where Clara was last seen, the waitress's face tightening as she recalled a woman, pregnant, frantic, a crescent moon tattoo on her wrist, whispering about fixing things before vanishing. My heart pounded, the pieces jagged, refusing to fit. Clara had been here, so close, and now she was gone. Back home, my apartment door was ajar, the diaper bag spilled across the floor. A note lay among the chaos, time's running out, a crescent moon beneath, its lines sharp as a threat. My scream woke Amelia, her cries merging with mine, the locket afire against my skin. The rain outside roared, but it couldn't drown the truth closing in, tight as a noose. Who was Clara running from? Why had Mama carried her secret to her grave? I held Amelia, her warmth my only anchor, but the shadows felt alive now, their edges sharp with intent. Someone was out there, watching, waiting, and I was running out of places to hide. I fled to a motel on the town's edge, its neon sign flickering like a dying star, casting jagged shadows across my fear. The notes, the voice, the footsteps, they weren't random, and I wasn't imagining them. Someone wanted Amelia, and I was their obstacle, a flimsy barrier of flesh and grief. The rain followed me, pounding the motel's thin roof, its rhythm a mirror to my racing pulse. I clutched the locket, Mama's words, protect her, a vow etched into my bones. Amelia's coos were soft in the dark, her star-shaped birthmark a faint glow, but the weight of her safety pressed harder, a price I wasn't sure I could pay. I hired a private investigator, my hands trembling as I handed him Mama's letter and Clara's photo. His eyes narrowed at the crescent moon, his voice grim. I've seen that symbol, at a women's shelter. My stomach twisted, the locket burning against my skin. Was Clara there? Was Amelia her legacy? I drove to the shelter, its walls peeling, the air thick with desperation. A worker remembered Clara, pregnant, terrified, muttering about making it right before she vanished. Her words hung in my chest, heavy as the rain outside, and I wondered what she'd been running from, what she'd left behind. Back at the motel, I found a hidden note in the locket's lining, Mama's handwriting faint but clear. Clara's child must be saved from him. My blood froze, the word him a shadow I couldn't name. Who was he? Why had Mama written this, hidden it like a secret, too dangerous to speak? The locket felt like a chain, binding me to a truth I wasn't ready for. Amelia stirred, her warmth grounding me, but the fear was a living thing now, coiled tight around my heart. Sarah arrived at the motel, her face streaked with tears, her voice breaking. I knew Clara was pregnant, she confessed, her eyes avoiding mine. Mama made me swear to stay silent. Her guilt mirrored mine, a shared wound we couldn't heal. I pressed her for more. But she shook her head, sobbing, leaving me with the locket's weight and a growing dread. Why had Mama trusted her and not me? What had they both hidden? The rain outside seemed to whisper their secrets, but I couldn't hear them clearly. That night, a car's headlights pierced the motel's darkness. Idling too long, their beams cutting through the curtains like blades. I held Amelia, my pulse a frantic drum, her coos drowned by the roar in my ears. The locket burned against my chest, Mama's warning alive, urgent. Was he out there, the him she feared? I checked the locks, my hands shaking, the neon signs flicker, casting shadows that moved when I didn't. Protecting Amelia was my vow, but the price was rising, a debt I wasn't sure I could pay. The rain roared on, its rhythm a warning, and I knew we weren't safe. Someone was watching, waiting, and the crescent moon was everywhere. In my dreams, on the notes, in Mama's words, pulling me toward a truth that might destroy us both. The investigator's call woke me, his voice tight as a wire. Daniel Reese, linked to Clara's disappearance, had a crescent moon tattoo on his wrist. My stomach churned, the name a blade slicing through the fog of fear. He was real, and he was close, his shadow stretching across my life like a stain. The motel's neon buzzed outside, its flicker casting jagged patterns on the walls, and I held Amelia, her star-shaped birthmark glowing faintly in the dark. The locket burned against my skin, Mama's words, "Protect her," a pulse I couldn't ignore. The rain pounded the roof, a relentless rhythm, and I knew the man in the shadows was coming for us. I found Daniel's address in a police report, a crumbling house on the town's edge, its windows dark as empty eyes. Driving past, I saw him, a man in the shadows, his gaze locking on me, unblinking, deliberate. My pulse spiked, the locket afire against my chest. Was he the him Mama feared? I gripped the steering wheel, Amelia's car seat, a quiet weight behind me, her coos drowned by the rain's roar. The house seemed to watch me back, its silence louder than the storm, and I drove away, my hands shaking. At the library, a 1998 clipping confirmed Daniel's history. Stalking Clara, never charged, his name a whisper in the town's underbelly. My fingers trembled, tracing his name, picturing his eyes on Amelia, on me. The locket felt heavier, Mama's warning a living thing. Why had Clara run? What had he done? I sat in the library's dim light, the air thick with dust and secrets, the crescent moon a constant in my mind, tying me to a past I couldn't escape. Sarah's confession came at dusk, her voice breaking in my motel room. "Daniel was Amelia's father," she said, tears streaming, her eyes begging me to stop searching. "Clara left to protect her." Her guilt was a mirror to mine, but her silence felt like betrayal. I showed her a photo from Mama's box. Her, Clara, Daniel, his arm possessive, a crescent moon pendant on Clara's neck. Sarah flinched, her hands twisting, and I knew she'd known more than she'd ever said. The locket burned, Mama's secrets pressing harder, demanding answers. That night, my motel window shattered, a rock crashing through, landing with a note. "Give her back, or you both die." Amelia's cries pierced the silence, merging with my scream, the locket afire against my skin. The rain roared outside, its rhythm a warning, but the shadows were closer now, their edges sharp with intent. I held Amelia, her warmth my only anchor, but Daniel's presence was everywhere, in the note, in the photo, in the crescent moon that haunted my dreams. He was hunting us, his claim on Amelia a threat I couldn't outrun. The motel's neon flickered, casting his shadow across my fear, and I knew I couldn't hide anymore. The locket pulsed, Mama's voice whispering through it, urging me to fight. But the price of protecting Amelia was rising, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to pay it. I couldn't run anymore. Daniel's crescent moon was everywhere. In my nightmares, on the notes, in Mama's warnings, a brand burned into my soul. I stood in the motel, Amelia's crib beside me, her star-shaped birthmark a faint glow in the dark. The rain pounded the roof, a relentless pulse, but it couldn't drown the fear clawing my chest. I had to face him, for Amelia, for Clara, for the promise I'd made without words. The locket burned against my skin, Mama's voice, "Protect her," a fire urging me forward. I didn't know then that courage was a razor's edge, and I was already bleeding. I met the investigator at Daniel's house, its crumbling walls reeking of neglect, papers scattered like ghosts of a life abandoned. A photo of Amelia was pinned to the wall, mine scrawled in red, the crescent moon beside it a taunt. My knees buckled, the locket a weight pulling me down. Was this his claim? His threat? The investigator's grim nod confirmed it. Daniel was close, his shadow growing darker. I clutched Amelia's blanket, her scent lingering, and felt my fear harden into something sharp, something I could wield. Sarah broke down in my motel room, her sobs raw, her confession spilling like blood. "Mama hid Clara from Daniel's abuse," she said, her eyes haunted. "Amelia's her daughter." The words hit like a fist, Clara's face, so like Mama's, flashing in my mind. I showed her Clara's letter, found in the shelter's records. "If I'm gone, keep my baby safe from him." Her handwriting trembled, a plea from the grave, and Sarah's tears fell harder, her guilt a mirror to mine. The locket burned, tying us all together, me, Clara, Amelia, Mama. The police tracked Daniel to a warehouse on the town's edge, its rusted walls looming in the storm. I went with them, Amelia in my arms, her warmth my only strength, my heart screaming, this was my fight. The rain roared, drowning my doubts, but the locket pulsed, Mama's warning alive. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern, its shadows thick with menace. Daniel emerged, his crescent moon tattoo glinting, his voice a low growl. "She's mine." His eyes locked on Amelia, and my fear surged, but so did my resolve, a fire I hadn't known I had. I stood tall, Amelia's weight grounding me, my voice steady despite the tremble in my hands. "You can't have her," I said, the locket burning against my chest, Mama's words a shield. Daniel stepped closer, his shadow swallowing the light, but I didn't move, didn't blink. The police were close, their radios crackling, but this moment was mine. Amelia's warmth, my courage. Could I end this, or would Daniel take everything I'd fought for? The rain outside answered, its rhythm a drumbeat of defiance, and I held her tighter, knowing the edge of courage was sharp, but I was ready to bleed for her, for Clara, for the family I'd found in the dark. The warehouse was a tomb, its air cold as betrayal, Daniel's eyes colder still. He stepped closer, his hand outstretched, the crescent moon tattoo on his wrist glinting like a blade. I held Amelia tight, her star-shaped birthmark warm against my chest, the locket searing my skin. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about her, Clara, Mama's promise. The rain roared outside, a relentless pulse, but it couldn't drown the fire in my veins, Mama's words. Protect her, a vow I'd die to keep. I didn't know then that the light through the cracks would find us, even in the darkest place. I screamed for the police, my voice raw, splitting the silence. They stormed in, their boots echoing, tackling Daniel as he roared Amelia's name, his tattoo flashing in the dim light. His eyes locked on mine, wild with rage, but I didn't flinch, Amelia's warmth my anchor. Clara's letter slipped from my pocket, its words a lifeline. "You're stronger than you know." For the first time, I believed her, the locket pulsing like a heartbeat, Mama's strength flowing through me. Daniel's screams faded as they dragged him away, the crescent moon no longer a threat, but a ghost laid to rest. At the station, they confirmed his arrest, linking him to Clara's murder months ago. My heart shattered for the cousin I'd never truly known, her face, so like Mama's, etched in my mind. I sat in the sterile light, Amelia asleep in my arms, her coos soft, her birthmark a beacon of the family we'd lost and the one we'd found. The locket felt lighter now, its weight shifting from grief to resolve. Clara's death was a wound, but her daughter was a gift, a light I hadn't expected to find. I brought Amelia home, the rain easing to a whisper, the Milltown's shadows softer now. Sarah waited at my apartment, her arms open, tears falling as she held us both. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice raw with guilt, and I nodded, our wounds beginning to heal, the rift between us mending in Amelia's presence. The locket rested against my chest, its metal warm, and I opened it, whispering to Mama. I kept her safe. Her smile from the photo seemed to flicker, a light through the cracks of my grief, a promise kept. Amelia's coos filled the silence, her star-shaped birthmark glowing faintly, a reminder of the family we'd forged in the dark. The crescent moon was gone now, its hold broken, but its shadow lingered in my dreams, a reminder of what I'd fought for. I'd carried Clara's story, and it had carried me, through fear, through loss, to this fragile light. If this journey broke your heart or lit a spark, share your thoughts below, give it a like, and subscribe. What would you risk for the ones you love? The rain outside was quiet now, but Amelia's warmth was louder, a beacon in the dark. And I knew we'd found our way home together, through the cracks where the light got in.